So, as you all know, we were doing family law, and family law under Indian law primarily consists of the aspects of Hindu law. Moreover, what we are focusing today or in our curriculum is going to be about marriage, ceremonies of Hindu marriage, void and voidable Hindu marriages, right? As to for what reasons the marriage has been considered void by the court, what is the meaning of voidable marriage, restitution of conjugal rights, very important topic, restitution of conjugal rights. It is though not very huge, not very vast, but then the technical terms and the logic behind restitution of conjugal rights is something that you people will have to pay your attention to, right? There is judicial separation also, divorce also, and as after divorce there is a subject matter of maintenance. If you must have heard maintenance, payment of alimony, all of these things are
Yes,
also
so
slightly given in your chapters, and we will have to go through those couple of topics as well. So as per the last class, we had done till Mitakshara and Dayabhag school, right? So I am planning to start from Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 from today onwards. All right, students. Okay. Hindu Marriage Act 1955. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 was intended to secure the rights of marriage for the bride and groom who are Hindu and are bound under the sacred bond of marriage under any ceremony. The law does not define the kind of ceremony, since there are several ways a man and woman may carry out this religious act. This act was floated after several cases were seen where both man and woman were petrified or humiliated under a fraud case in the name of marriage. This act is binding to any person who is Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and Buddhist and not a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or Jew and is governed by some other law. This law is binding to any person who is Hindu by birth or by religion. There is a complete definition of Hindu under Section 2 of the Hindu Marriage Act. This law was enacted to avoid the various consequences which were prevalent due to immature Hindu law for marriage under British rule. So students, this was a slight introduction, a brief introduction to what the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 would include. All right. So as of what all we have read right now, uh, it is surely informative to you that the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 was basically compiled in order to secure the rights of a perfect Hindu marriage, right? Hindu law is something else. Hindu law is a wider task, a wider topic. But then under that, an important topic would be of Hindu marriage. And in order to secure the rights and do not have any harmful consequences of the marriage, there were certain rules and regulations laid down in this particular act, which was enforced in 1955 for a Hindu marriage to be executed in a very perfect manner, which is legal in all sorts of form, which is religious in the Hinduism aspect, right? And there is no such flaw between a man and a woman after getting married. So students, as you all know that marriage in any religion, in any country is a very holy, pious activity. It happens in almost all the religions. We all follow different kinds of procedures, rituals that are included in the act of or ceremony of getting married to someone. But then there are also certain problems that the society has been facing. I am not talking about any particular religion. We will directly bounce back to Hindu law, but I'm talking on a general basis. There are certain problems also where a marriage can become can be called a zero marriage. Like all the ceremonies are being prepared, the bride and the groom are all ready, but then there is something, some sort of situation or some truth or fact that comes up which strikes down the particular marriage that is going to happen between Mr. A and Miss B, right? Why is that? For example, Mr. A being the to be husband in the married couple, what if he is already a divorcee and he has not complied with all the rules or all the orders that have been given by the court, right? He also has to comply. what if that particular person is not a divorcee, he's still married on paper with some other women? Do you think that marriage is going to be legal or validated? If a person,
No,
if
sir.
Mr. A is already married to someone else on paper, do you think the marriage between Mr. A and Miss B in present time will be validated and legalized?
No, sir.
No, sir.
And why? And why would that be? Why would such a
Sir,
marriage
because
not be legalized?
sir,
Because
because
according to Hindu law, yes, yes,
only one marriage is allowed.
exactly. Because according to Hindu law, Hindu Marriage Act, one marriage is allowed. If you are supposed to involve yourself in marrying again, the law and the act says that you have to follow all the procedures for divorce with your previous wife, pay her the alimony if she is a non-earning member of the house, and then you can move on after a certain period of time to get married to another woman. Hence, what was the act in history, if you people must have read, of having multiple wives? Does anybody remember?
Polygamy.
Yes, sir.
Polygamy.
Polygamy, multiple marriage. Now a
The
little
kings
now
used to have 100 wives.
so now you people are getting a gist as to how Hindu marriage will be legalized or validated, right? Polygamy got striked out as an activity, as a ceremony. Nobody follows polygamy in today's era because that was completely against the piousness and the religiousness of Hinduism or any other such religion. It was considered to be, exploitation of a female's life. Why? Because a single man who's married to three, four, five, or whatever n number of women, all of their lives is being exploited, as they are not able to enjoy their rights, they are not able to move freely in the society. So, and plus, they don't have the privilege to be called a single man's wife. So many aspects were taken into consideration, were taken into account under the eyes of Hindu law, and henceforth particular void and voidable marriage terms were coined in Hindu Marriage Act.
So I have to
Understood,
ask.
students? One moment, Shanist, one moment. Let me just wind up with the introduction for this. As you can see in the next page, it's given the act is binding to any person. Now, this is the legal aspect of Hindu law, coining the who all are going to be under this law. This act is binding to any person who is a Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and Buddhist, and not a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or Jew, and governed by other law. What does this line mean? This line means that the Hindu Marriage Act would be governing any person who is a Hindu, a Jain, a Sikh, or a Buddhist, because they are taken here under one common heading, that is Hindu. And apart from that, we don't include Muslims in this because Indian government, Indian constitution had created a separate Muslim law because Muslim law is also very vast. For Christian marriages, we have a different act called Indian Marriage Act, Indian Special Marriage Act, which covers Christian, Parsi, and Jews weddings. Okay, students. So for Hindu marriages, we have Hindu Marriage Act under Hindu law. For Muslim marriages, we have Muslim law. For Christian marriages, Parsis and Jews, we have Indian Special Marriage Act. All right, students. Shanist, you had a question.
So, like you said that to marry other women, one has to have divorce fully on paper, completely with their first woman.
And payment of all the sorts of alimony and everything.
Yes, sir. But you said that he has to also pay to the woman
If
who is
she is non-earning.
not working. So, sir, if she is
If she's
working, she's in a job, you don't have to pay.
if she's working, if she's in a job, Shanist and all the other students, there has been a new amendment in Hindu Marriage Act by the Supreme Court. and you shall be aware of it in no time, in less time. It says that a working wife would not be paid that huge amount of an alimony as compared to a non-working wife. Since a non-working wife is considered to be a homemaker, a housewife, she is not supposed to be, she's not supposed to be working in the office, she's in the house. Hence, the husband, if he's divorcing, is supposed to pay a good amount of alimony in one go, or he has to pay every month from his own salary to the very person. All right,
So
So, but
what
in
portion of
Muslims
that
law,
was
sir,
supposed to be
sir,
paid?
one by one, one by one. Lotus.
yes, sir. Sir, I am saying that,
Yes.
but in sir, in Muslim law, sir, in Muslim marriage, sir, the person husband has to give his wife according to his meher, so that whatever
Beta,
amount has been written at the time
that
of
is different.
marriage.
That is different. Don't confuse Muslim law with Hindu law right now. We'll come to Muslim law the next year. You'll have good knowledge about it. Abhi, if we get into Muslim law or any other law, it will be very confusing for all of us. Okay, so you'll have your time with Muslim law, Lotus. Don't worry.
Excuse me, sir.
So
Yes, no. Shanisht. Yes, your turn, and then Fatima.
so what percentage of the net worth of the man has to be paid, has to be shared
Yes.
to the. So what percentage of the net worth of the man has to be shared to the woman?
I'm sorry, there is a specific percentage. I will let you know of that. But then, in today's jurisdiction and judicial review, it has been said that according to the daily needs of the person and their expenses, it is calculated by the court, and how much as per the person earns, the husband, the earner. According to that, a calculation is done by the court, and they order the husband to pay such and such alimony.
And sir, what if like it could have said that a working wife cannot be paid that much? So what if she
Exactly.
leaves
That
her
no,
job?
she
So
cannot do
what
anything
if
about it.
she
She can
divorces and
keep her job.
joins?
What if she divorces?
So what if she before divorce she leaves her job and divorce and then joined again?
She will. Everything has a loophole. But then the court will also ask for the women's papers, right? That had you been working in any office, what would have been. So if had she been working in any sort of office, her bank statements would show that. Her bank statements would show as to how much balance she has in her account as liquid money. So see, the all that is concerned here by the court is the well-being of the woman after she is getting divorced. Why? Because see, it's not a stereotypical thing, but then we see that in today's era, we see that the husband and the wife both are working mostly all the times, but then there are still so many families where the wife is not working. And if the divorce happens, the wife has to be given some sort of money and some sort of amount, because all of a sudden, even if she starts to work, that will also require a kind of investment. So the court looks upon to a lot of aspects, a lot of things. It's just not one thing that the person is getting divorced. Party A, which is the husband, should pay some amount to party B, which is the wife. No, it doesn't go that way. There are a lot of points that the judges and the court and the advocates have to go through. Even when there is a case of alimony in the court of law, don't think that it happens in an hour or something. It takes up a good amount of logic making, a good amount of argument making inside the courtroom, because there have to be points that are supposed to be proven, and henceforward then only we get any sort of alimony which is supposed to be granted to the wife, or whichever way the case is supposed to be disposed. Okay, students.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, is there any kind of provision under Hindu Marriage Act
So
that,
I'm waiting.
Oh
sir,
yes, Samriddhi, I'm so sorry, I'll have to ask you to take a pause in between. It was Fatima's turn, then Samriddhi, it will be your turn. Yes, Fatima.
So I just want to ask that according to Hindu Marriage Act, a husband will have to pay maintenance to a wife, whether wife is earning or not, whether wife is right now earning or not, or whether wife will be earning. So it doesn't matter whether she is working or
It
not.
doesn't
He will
matter.
have to pay.
Yeah,
He
he
will
will
have to
have
pay
to pay.
anytime.
Yeah, he will have to pay, but the court will also look into all the three options that you just said, right?
Yes, sir.
So all the options that you said are the three very important points that the court looks into, takes into consideration. whether she is working or not, whether she was working or whether she will be working.
But he has to pay
Okay.
anyhow.
Yeah, there is a certain small amount that will be paid. Okay. So yes, Samriddhi, after you, we will start the chapter. Kindly bring up your question.
So I was asking, is there any provision under Hindu Marriage Act that divorcee couple can marry again?
Yes, they can marry. That is called restitution of conjugal rights. But that does not happen after divorce. What happens? There is a part which is called judicial separation basically, right? And after judicial separation, there is a stage which is given by the court under Hindu law, which is called restitution of conjugal rights. Conjugal rights, students, it means the married rights, the couple rights that they have as a married couple. Restitution is what? It by name only it means to reinstitute those rights between a husband and a wife who have judicially separated. So before the divorce is finalized, the court, the advocates, they sit down and they make their clients to give them a time of restitution of conjugal rights, which means the couple is given a chance to reinstitute, to reincarnate their married couple rights. Okay, I hope this clarifies your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, students, now kindly pay attention on your notes. We are moving on with the next page, which, as you can see, it's given below are some important components to make you aware of the Hindu marriage law. Section 5, Section 2, 3, 8, 9, 15, 6 and 24. Okay, after that we have a particular topic. So Section 5 of Hindu Marriage Act is not so much of a religion. Hindu marriage is not so much of a religion and is more a result of a mutual consent. Students, let me tell you, in these sections which are given right here, there is not much to understand, but for students at your stage, you have to read it thoroughly and memorize it. The explanation part I'm doing, but then you have to stay with me on the same page. Read it, memorize it, and also understand it while I'm explaining in the class. But it's nothing very difficult, nothing very stone. All right. Section 2, as per Section 2 of the Hindu Marriage Act, marriage amongst Hindus in any form, irrespective of caste or creed, or amongst any person who is bound under this act, like Buddhists and Sikhs and Jains, so-called Hindus, is a Hindu marriage. Which means, students, it simply says, if you eradicate the commas which are in between, it basically says marriage among Hindus in any form, irrespective of caste, creed or color, it will be a Hindu marriage if it includes Hindus, Jains and Buddhists. Understood? Any Hindu marriage would be called a Hindu marriage if it happens in any form, but it must include Hindus, Jains, Sikhs and Buddhists. That will be coined as Hindu marriage with proper Hindus amongst it. All right, students?
Sir,
Okay.
something.
Section 3 of the Hindu Marriage Act. Section 3 of this act revoked the prohibited degrees of relationships which was defined in Smritis and have defined certain new prohibited degree of relationships. So basically, students, Section 3 basically calls for certain kinds of prohibitions that had been done in the time when Smritis were written down and also in the present era. Nothing new, nothing old. It's just something that had been taken in an ancient Hindu time and now has been repeated again.
Sir,
Section 8, yes, Shanish.
like in Section 5, it is said that marriage is more of a result of mutual consent. So, like in many of the cases in India, most of the couples are not taking consent. Their families are involved.
Exactly.
Like,
So they are making it into a religious aspect. They are not looking forward for the interpersonal consent of
so,
the man and the woman, which is
so
wrong.
in the law, their marriage will be like not
No. ऐसा नहीं
recognized.
है that their marriage will, no. ऐसा नहीं है that their marriage will be void. But since the consent is between the families too, the families are basically the roots of the man and the woman who are supposed to getting married, right? So if they are matching a couple, if the two families are matching a couple for their own children, which means they are doing the best for them. And eventually a mutual consent develops between the to be husband and wife. Hence, the families work it out in a manner where both the boy and the girl, they get to know each other and develop a mutual consent. Hence, make that Hindu marriage religious as well as consensual, between like consent between the two people and also religious between the two families. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, Shanisht.
Yes, sir.
Section 8 is very simple. Section 8 says this act has introduced the provision of registering the marriage under this act. Simple. Nothing very hard. Section 8 says that the Hindu marriage can be registered under Hindu Marriage Act. Section 6. No, Section 16. I'm sorry, please students correct it. It's Section 16, not Section 6. I'm so sorry. The heading must have edited
Sir,
itself
you have also given
somehow.
section 9 and 15.
Oh, Section 9. Okay, okay. But correct Section 16 firstly. Now
Yes.
we'll move on to Section 9. So Section 9 was something that I was telling you all. It's about restitution of conjugal rights. So before the couple can get divorced, the court gives the couple a turn where they can reinstitute their married couple rights. So Section 9 is all about that. Section 15, it says that after a valid divorce, either party is eligible to remarry. As simple as that. Somebody had put up a question whether they can remarry after divorce. Yes, after the complete validation of the divorce, each individual is eligible to remarry. Section 16 defines the legitimacy of children born out of the alliance and can be subsequently declared annulled or void or voidable. Now, Section 16 basically calls out for those children who are born out of marriage. There is nothing more explained to be explained here. Any children who is an illegitimate child would be someone who is born out of a marriage. Out of a marriage means, what if the couple conceives a child after their divorce? Then the question of legitimacy of that child would be dealt under Section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act. All right. Anything confusing regarding Section 16, students?
No, sir. Sir, like when.
Excuse me, sir.
One moment. Let me just wind up Section 24, then I'll take up questions. Section 24 of this act defines the provision of maintenance pendent light and for the expenses of legal proceedings for a divorce. Simple. Section 24 talks about the fees, the court fees for the procedure of divorce, and secondly, the maintenance to be paid to whom by who. All right, simple. Yes.